Hey friends, it's time for this week's mindful moment. So there has been a lot of stir and a lot of conversation around. I've heard it in the news. I've heard it at my workplace about as we've gone through the COVID crisis. How do we come back to normal? How do we navigate back to what normal looks like and feels like after we've been in quarantine and the stay-at-home order, and so much of our life has been shifted and changed in the last 6 weeks? And so there's these conversations about what is normal going to look like? What is it going to feel like? How are we going to adapt and go back to what life used to be? And I think one of the big questions that comes to mind, in the workplace, you start to think of new processes and new workflows and things that you might have implemented that have changed in the season because they needed to change, right? To fit the new paradigm, to fit the new need and desire. And so, but as we assess and look at those things, even in the workplace, it's like some of those things that we have discovered and creativity that's come through and new initiatives and new processes are actually things that we want to hold on to as we approach and come into that normal place again. That place where that we've discovered new things, innovative things that are changing the workplace, and they're good things and things that might have never come about if we hadn't gone through this time of really hunkering down and doing the things that matter most. And it's caused me to also think about this perspective as it relates to my personal life and my family and what things have changed within our household that I want to make sure that as we come into the new normal or whatever that looks like, how do I stay in? As a family, how do we stay locked in that place of the good things, the better things, the best things that we've tapped into? Hi, Jane. How are you? The better things that we've tapped into in the last 6 weeks and 8 weeks and 12 weeks as we navigate through this COVID crisis back to normal reality. And I just had to jot myself down some notes because there are things that we have found as a family that I want to hang on to and cling to and bring into our daily focus. And there are things that have brought joy, right? Things that have brought a sense of peace, things that we have discovered as a family that, yes, they were there before, but maybe not even realizing the deeper, greater value of those connections and those mindful moments in those relationships. So I think about we've had a slower pace, busyness. Our calendar hasn't been filled with extra busyness. We've been able to hunker down and just be present as a family. There's been laughter. There has been singing at the top of lungs, people. I have teenage daughters. There has been much singing at the top of the lungs. We might be able to bring that down just a little bit when we get back to the normal. But it's been joyful, right? In those moments, it's been joyful. And so, but there's been more exercise. There's been more walks out in the country. There's been more just being at peace and sitting, enjoying each other's company. There's been more baking happening in my house because my girls are coming up with creative things to eat, and I've tasted some interesting concoctions over the last few weeks. But the ability for just having the time to be creative, the time to just be present, spending less money. Our savings account is going up as we're spending less money being out and about in that busy lifestyle. Creativity and music and art and just conversation and reading books and getting caught up on TV series. Can't take that out of the picture. But just some of these things that have brought joy that I want to make sure that as we push into and lean into that new normal, as we get back into what normal life resumes, as it gets back to, if that ever occurs. But how do we stay in that place, in the things that have brought us joy? How do we continue to press into those? And how do we continue to hold those tight and have that value? And I think that that's this week's challenge and mindful moment challenge this week, is that I know we still have a few more weeks of the stay-at-home order, but I would challenge you to get out your journal and be paying attention in your household. Be paying attention in your relationship with your spouse. Be paying attention to your interactions with your children, and maybe how you're doing virtual huddles and virtual connections with family. And be paying attention to the moments that energize you, the moments that bring you joy, the moments that fill your heart, the moments where you feel peace and calm and still, the moments that maybe our busy lifestyle before was so overly full that we didn't have the time. We didn't have the time, friends, to pause, to press the pause button, to be present, to really come back to that simple place of connections, of relationship, of spirituality, of faith, of hope, of love, of meaningful moments of connection with those that matter the most in our life. Friends, this week's challenge, pull out your journal, write down those things that are bringing peace, are bringing joy, and then start to maybe even have a conversation as a family, or with your spouse, or just even you personally, the changes that you've experienced, of a strategy and a plan. And as a family, how can we continue these things that have drawn us closer together as we shift into normal, as we go back into regular lifestyles? How do we continue to have those meaningful connections? How do we continue to lean into just being connected? And isn't that what it's all about? Connection. We're built and wired for connection. We're built for relationships. We're built to want to be together and connected to people. And I feel like in so many things, in so many conversations on Facebook feeds, and so many things that I'm hearing about from different friends, they are finding ways to connect with family and friends that maybe they haven't even done that in weeks, months, or years. But because of this specific season we're in, where we have nothing else to do but be intentional with our time and with those that we really love, let's make plans. Let's set out goals. Let's set out intentions. Let's put accountability in place with our family, with our spouse, of how we're going to continue to lean into the very things that, as busyness has been stripped away, as all chaos in our life has been kind of stripped away, and has come down to the simple things of learning just to be. May that be the thing that carries us forward. May that be our better normal. May that be our best normal. Why settle for normal when we can have a better or a best based on the things that we have stepped into and walked into in this season? Friends, even though in the midst of crisis, isn't that, if you look through our history, isn't it in the midst of crisis that major innovations have taken place, major shifts in our culture, major paradigm shifts in the way we think and how we process things and how we create and how we do work and how we do business and how we relate to people? If you look throughout our history, those are the pivotal moments where things have shifted into amazing opportunities. And friends, this is an amazing opportunity in the midst of a crisis to lean into and discover the things that make you tick and bring you alive. And that's our relationships. That's our time of being present. That's our time of tapping into those things that bring us joy. It's not the hustle and the bustle. It's not the busyness. It's not how full I can make my calendar and look like and feel like I'm important, but it's simply stripping it down to the things that matter most. So challenge accepted, because this is something I've been thinking about. I've been having this conversation with my husband as well. How can we do this? How can we be purposeful about less TV time? Hey, I love TV. I love Netflix and Amazon Prime. Love it. But how do we continue to build in and a hardwire in the best normal for our family that includes that purposeful, joyful connection with each other? So thank you so much for listening this week. I'm excited about the good things in the midst of what seems like a challenging time, and it is. There's good that's coming out. There's gold that's coming out. There's things that we're discovering that are just beginning to shine and flourish. And now is the time to grab hold of them and build them into the framework of your life, because that's what it's all about, friends. All right. That's all I have to say for today. So until next time, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you again next week.